it will vary. It has different settings depending on the weight of the glider and different wind settings as well. So that's what it's trying to accelerate to, about 50, 60 knots. And I've used knots. How many know knots? Yeah, oh, good. Right. Okay, knots are nautical miles an hour. So 50 knots is about 57 miles an hour. Okay, so we use knots in how we describe speed. So one of the first things is safety with cables. Be very careful with the cables. Don't touch them until you've had a briefing on them, and we'll tell you how to handle them. But we will get you working on that side as well. But just be careful with those and just stay the safe side of the cable and handle them properly. And you'll see when the glider takes off just how quickly it does accelerate. So we use a bus which is out on the airfield now for our controls, so the radios and lights that control the launch operation. I'm going to quickly go through this because it'd be nice to get out and get some flying. We do use aerotow, so we do use another aircraft to tow us up. The main advantage of this is that we can be towed higher and we can be towed to another area around. So if the conditions were good, say at Cirencester, we wouldn't get there with a winch launch, but we could get an aerotow to take us over there and we could go and get some good conditions and fly away for the day. Disadvantage with aerotow is that it's more expensive. So with a winch you'll always get dumped at the end of the airfield, whether it's over the top of the winch. With an aerotow you can get towed further away. So an aerotow is about £28 to 2,000 feet, I think, at the moment. Winch launch, well for you, I think it's £7, isn't it? Something you pay six, whatever it is. £6-7. So the winch for a winch launch. But if you want to get towed higher, well, you get towed up to 4,000 feet, and have a lot more flying and do a lot more exercises. So there's sort of pros and cons for both, and we're able to do both here. But the majority of that is winching. There is a place left in the country. Have you ever built model gliders and fired them off at a rubber band? This is exactly how it's done here. There's a place at the Long Mynd up in Shropshire where you have two teams running down the slope with a long, basically elastic, a rope. So a team holding onto the glider and just letting it go, and it flies out over the ridge and away it goes. Very, very gentlemanly way of getting into the air, really. But the ridge has to work, otherwise you're landing down the bottom of the ridge. You can only do it on a hill site, you couldn't do it from a flat site.
How safe is it compared to winch launch?
Well, figures, there's no real comparison because they're winching in the country. I don't know how many clubs, 40, 50 clubs who are winching. I think there's only one club left that actually does bungeeing now. So it's probably the comparison isn't there, but I'm not aware of any accident. You're generally, because you're using that when the wind is blowing up the ridge, so you're almost guaranteed to get into the wind and fly up and down the ridge anyway, so it's fairly safe. So how do we stay airborne? Who knows about thermals? You know about thermals? Alright. What's a thermal?
You glide on the hotter air that puts you up higher.
Does, yeah.
But you have to go with it. It doesn't just go straight.
Well, it has many forms of thermal. Can be a bubble, can be a column, can be large, can be small, can be broken. But a thermal is formed by the sun heating the ground. And we've got it depicted here as a brown field, but it could be something like an industrial area, a big area tarmac, something like that. Something that's going to absorb more energy than the ground around it. And that energy that's in the ground then warms the air above it, and that air will become buoyant. Now it can just lift off on its own, or it might need a trigger, such as a car driving through it or something else. But once it's triggered, it will lift off, and we end up with this air. As it goes up, it expands because the pressure reduces, the barometric pressure reduces, so it expands and it cools. And eventually gets to a point, the dew point, where it will actually form the cumulus cloud. So the big puffy, white puffy clouds that you've seen around generally are the ones that we're looking for as glider pilots, because they're formed by the thermals. And that thermal underneath can be broken. It can be a small bubble, can be a large bubble, can be all sorts. And the skill is in trying to maintain the lift within that climb.
So is there a thermal within the cloud, or is the cloud just?
No, the thermal will go up through the cloud. You
Right.
can actually cloud fly. Yeah. It will go, and often quite strong within the cloud as well.
Right.
And the UK is one of the few countries left at the moment that's still able to cloud fly. A lot of the countries in Europe don't allow it.
Why?
Safety and
Ships and
visibility and whatever. But the UK has trained people in cloud flying, and we're still allowed to do it. At the moment, how much longer that's going to be, I don't know, because the European influence is becoming more and more apparent. So you know, there's a time perhaps when we're not going to be able to do it.
I heard the Germans are allowed to do that.
No,
Is it? No.
definitely not.
Oh, okay. I thought it, because I saw some comments on YouTube.
I don't know, John might. John, do you know any other countries in Europe that clouds fly?
But it's not allowed.
Very few.
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah, downstairs in the office, Jill asked you about all the stuff, all the forms and everything. So we use a thermal to climb. In the UK we can get climb rates of 2 to perhaps 8 to 10 knots maybe on a really good day. So you can climb quite quickly. And we fly cross country by using that thermal to climb, usually to cloud base if we can get there. And then we glide, and then we look for our next climb, and we climb again, and we carry on like that. And that's how we can do these large distances, by using the thermal. Okay? Now, we're not running any thermals today, unfortunately, because the sun this time of year just isn't hot enough. So we would look for other forms of lift through the winter that reduce things like a bit of hill soaring. So if you've got the wind coming up over a ridge, over a hill, then that will give us lift. And there is a ridge that runs down from Bath up to north of Cheltenham, that if you get across onto that, and the wind is in the right direction and strong enough, then you can use that ridge to fly up and down. You're not very high off the hill, so it's quite exhilarating, quite interesting, but it's usually if you're that sort of height, then you can always turn out over the valley and find somewhere to land if you need to. So you can use hill lift like that. I'll go through this very quickly, so if you've got any questions later in the day, just ask and we'll talk about it. There's something we call wave, which is formed by the wind being deflected over an object like a mountain, large hill or whatever, and then forming a sine wave in the sky. So when you look up and you see on a very windy day that some clouds that are very smooth shaped and across the wind, those call those lenticular clouds because they're lens shaped, but they stay still. Unlike cumulus clouds which move with the wind, lenticular clouds will stay still, and the wave system will stay still, stay set up. And we use the upsides of the wave to climb up, and this is how we can get to 37,000 feet or so, and whatever. Just this year I've been to 12,000 feet over the Severn Valley, so it does happen over this way with wave from the Welsh mountains. But quite often we take the club goes up to Scotland to fly up there to find wave. And so we generally plod through the sort of winter months. So that's again another form of lift that we'll use. So what are we going to do today? We're going to briefing, which is this. We're going to go out and perform a daily inspection. We're going to look at the aircraft, if they've not been done already. We'll take you out and do a briefing on the aircraft, and we'll do a parachute briefing. We do use parachutes. The aircraft are designed to take parachutes in the seats. It makes sense to take them because you see with thermals we're often flying quite close to other aircraft, so there is a slightly increased chance of collision. But we'll tell you about lookout, making sure that you're looking out and the instructor's looking out, and hopefully we're not going to bump into anybody. But we carry parachutes as a safety device, so we'll brief you on using those. We're going to do some winch launches. If we get time, we'll take some of you down the winch so you can see the sharp end of the business as well. I want you to help out on the airfield as well, but do that under our instruction for now. So we'll tell you about moving aircraft around, driving the retrieved vehicles, and helping get aircraft ready for launching and that sort of thing. Okay. And we'll try and have some fun. But again, any questions you have, just let me know. So, a bit about membership for yourselves. We do have a flying list, so when you turn up on a normal weekday or a weekend, there is a list that we have on the bus, which if you put your name on the list, then that's the order of list of flying. We generally give you a number of flights. As you get your name comes to the top of the list, you get your instruction of two-seater. But try and sort of stick to that, be aware of that and what it is. We really want you to be part of the club, and that means assisting with operations, helping out, not just being a separate entity. We want you to be part of the club and getting involved in everything that goes on. We're all volunteers here. The only person in the club that's employed is the lady that's in the office downstairs. All the rest of us do this for fun. So, we all help out, and we all want to get as much out of flying and helping people as much as we can. So if you help us in doing that, that's great as well. We would expect that. Be safe, so think about safety. A couple of things with the cables I've talked about. The other thing is gliders are very quiet, so keep a good lookout when you're walking around the airfield. If you walk out to a glider that's just landed, make sure that there isn't another one coming in. Be aware of what's going on the airfield. ask. I'd like you to pay your fee.